afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the Dext training session for today. Mastering Dext, getting you set up for effortless bookkeeping. My name is Stephen Darling, and I'm a Customer Success Manager with the Dext Canada team. And in this session, we're going to go over some of the best methods, tips, and preferred practices to assist with mastering and getting the most out of Dext. What we'll be covering today is how to manage how your data is published by using payment methods and publishing destinations, how to easily reconcile with both bank match and paperwork match, how to automate your workflow with supplier rules and auto-publish. Then we're going to move on to how to use expense claims and change any client user privileges. And then finally, how to communicate with your clients through the app about any existing or missing items. We're now going to move into Dext to show you where you can set up and manage your different payment methods and destinations. So as you can see, this is what the new Dext looks like. Probably looks a little bit different, and if you haven't switched already, this is what the new enhanced Dext with its updated user interface and layout and design look like. So previously you would have found your lists here along the left hand column. Show you how to switch back to the old Dext here. So you would previously have found your lists along this side. However, in the new Dext, where we're going to find our lists are going to be within the business settings. So if I select one of the clients here, the first thing you're going to notice is that we're now looking at the updated cost inbox. But in order to add in a new payment method, we're actually going to hover down here. We're going to go to the business settings. And then from the business settings, if we go down to lists, this is where we're going to find our previously lists that were along the left-hand side. So you should see here at the bottom, we have payment methods. So payment methods in Dext allow you to apply a specified detail to all submitted documents that were paid for using a specific payment method. So you can set the rules as well, see the other existing rules in here. So as you can see, we have one in here already. So if we wanted to add a new payment method, you could choose the name. So let's say that this was Stephen's credit card or Visa. You can add that, and then you can add the last 4 digits of the card. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can add that in. So now as you can see, we do have the payment method added with the reference for the last 4 cards. You can also at this time turn on auto publishing, meaning it'll automatically publish any paid items using this payment method. And you can also decide where the destination should be published to. So publishing destinations, you can choose from a few different ones, and they will be set, you can set them as a default before publishing as well. So as you can see here, these destinations are actually in reference to QuickBooks. So if you have your accounting software integrated with QuickBooks Online, you'll be able to choose a bill for any unpaid items or transactions. As well, if you have some items that were paid, you can identify them as cash, check, credit card, a credit note, or credit card credit. Also note, if you do use a debit card, you can also classify that as credit card. As well, you can link it to any bank accounts that you have set up within the system. This way you can identify and publish any items to there. Now, when it comes to 0, if I come over to another account, I'm going to go to the business settings here. I'm going to go back to a different client just to show you where that is located. So if we have a 0 client here, once again, if I navigate to the business settings, lists, and payment methods, you can set different items. So within the integration, any unpaid invoices or documents that come in, you can have published to purchases. So that would be what you do for any unpaid items. You can also decide to publish these items as either drafts or awaiting approval or awaiting payment or paid. So if I head back to the inbox here, let's say grab this Uber receipt. If I scroll down, as you can see here, it can be published as an invoice, but if it were not, I can have it published to be an invoice or a bank account. Grab a different example here. It's not marked. So right here, you can see we can publish this to purchases, and you can then publish it as a draft, waiting approval, awaiting payment, or paid where possible. So this would be how you would set your different publishing destinations within Xero. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is bank match. So if you have connected your bank feeds and your transactions, you'll see here, this is our cost inbox. So the bank match will allow you to identify an item in your cost inbox with a matching unreconciled line within your bank transactions within Dext. It'll show up within the bank feed as well with the integrated software. So if you are in the bank space, you'll see we also have the batch column here as well. So if we were to have the item matched here within Dext, you would be able to see the icon, and it actually identifies any transactions from your feed that have been made within the last 6 months of submissions. So older transactions still do need to be published manually. So the matching criteria for this, you need to actually have a total amount, so the payment date, which allows the entries within the last 10 days just to document within the document date to allow for the payment to the bank account. So when the match icon is found, you can actually hover over the item to review the information. I'll show you an example of that right here. So with the bank match, you'll be able to hover over the icon and it'll let you know that the item will autofill the information, and so you can see that in there. The other item to be aware of is also paperwork match. So if there was a paperwork match, that would allow you to see any existing payments within the last 6 months in your accounting software, so that you don't have an attached image to. So when there is a paperwork icon visible, you'll be able to see that, and the paperwork match will then allow you to select that button and the attached image to your accounting software record. So any matched items that are determined based off of matching the supplier name, the total amount, as well as the matching invoice or receipt date. So when working in the inbox and the match column, you will be able to confirm that the document image have been matched and showing the match found icon. So you can hover over that and get an idea of what the image is. So you don't have to worry about creating a duplicate transaction in the GL. The match date in the integration software can be up to 10 days as well, just to be aware from the document date, and it'll still set up and show as a match. Now, going back to the cost workspace, we're now going to talk about supplier rules. So there's a few different places to add your supplier rules. Now, as we had found earlier, the new list section is in the business settings, but suppliers are actually now housed within the cost inbox. So if I go to suppliers here, you can see these are some of the rules that we can set. However, if you do want to identify any key invoices, so if I go on one of the items here, these are some of the rules that you can set. So depending upon what system settings you have determined for your duplicate cost items, you can actually override that at a supplier level. So rather than having the system to review, you can actually have it set to be automatic or to review or off. So the duplicate cost items, what that will do is when an item is submitted or added to Dext, if the system's able to determine that it's already been submitted and in the system, it will automatically remove that from the inbox and put it into your archive as it'll be deleted. You can review that from your submission history. So if there's any items that were perhaps incorrectly identified, you can still come and restore them from the submission history tab here at the bottom. But that's what the duplicate cost items are going to do. Now, let's say that you have some suppliers that it's always going to be the same category. So you can actually come in and set that up so that it's always going to go to the same category. You can have it so that it has a set due date or a description. And from there, you can also turn on auto publishing. So this way, anything that comes in from this supplier, it will have the category applied, any other criteria. Let's say that you had a class set up for that, or this was for the monthly advertising, for example. You could have that added in, and that way it'll automatically be published. If you don't want to have that automatically published, you can still make use of the other rules, such as if this supplier has a particular payment method, you can assign that card if it's automatically charged so that you won't have to add that information in. As well, you can also have this set so that it's automatically published to the correct destination, if it's always going to be marked as paid as well. So these are some of the settings to make your workflow a little bit quicker and easier for you. As well, if you do have some invoices that come in that have several line items that you normally have to break out, you can actually have the system extract the line items as well. That will disable the ability to add smart split rules, which I'll talk about in a second. But the extract line items is a great feature to have if you have multiple lines that you're constantly having to add them in, as it will save you a lot of time from having to manually enter in the description and different tax rates. Now, smart split rules, this is a way for you to add either a fixed amount or a percentage, or actually a combination of both to set up when new invoices come into the system. So let's say, for example, you have a mobility bill that comes in that you would like to have separated and added to two different overhead accounts, perhaps, or split between a personal account and a business account. You could come in here, add that in, put in the description, choose the particular category, and then any new documents that are submitted for that supplier will automatically have those line items created. So you can have multiple lines, or if you have, let's say, inventory items that need to be split, you can have those applied as well. So that would be the supplier rules, as well as auto publish. Now, if you don't want to work within the individual supplier, you can also make use of those settings by updating them on the whole to see which items are turned on or turned off, and set any categories from this main tab. One last place you can actually update any rules is actually from the documents themselves. So if we are looking at an invoice here, along the details tab, let's say that you notice, oh, we do always have a certain category that we like to publish this item to. So along the side where you actually see the supplier name, you can actually set the supplier rules from here, so you don't have to navigate or change any of these settings. As you can see, you can update these items or turn them on as auto publish, or change any settings as they come in, and these will take effect for any upcoming invoices that are entered. That would be another way to add in some of the items. Now, moving on, as you can see, we now have expense claims embedded within the cost workspace. So expense claims are going to be for employee reimbursable expenses. So these are items that they have maybe purchased with their own personal card or cash that they need to be reimbursed for. So as you can see here, I have created one expense claim, but let's say that you are working within a document and this was paid for by my own personal debit card. So you can actually then add this to an expense claim. So this will allow you to either add it to an existing claim, at which point you'll be able to view and review any open claims, or you can create a new claim. So let's say that this claim was for me and it was up till this date, and this was for a company travel. So you can add that in, and then it will take the item and move it from the cost workspace and move it into the expense claims system. So from here, you'll be able to add in the items. You can also create a new name for the claim. If there's multiple suppliers, you can also do that. And if you've mistakenly added an item to this, you can also then remove that. So let's say that this was the incorrect invoice from the inbox. I can now remove this from the claim. So if I remove that, the claim still exists because I haven't deleted the claim, which I could do. And now if I return to the inbox, I now see this has been returned. So now I can take this item and now I can add this to that expense claim for my existing claim for the company travel. And now when I go back to the expense claims, I will be able to find that in the settings where I can now, if I need to, submit this for approval. So you can then choose your approver. So that'll be sent through and they can then approve it before it's published. And if you've mistakenly added this item in, you can either export it as well or download it as a PDF. So you can, as you can see, it'll give you an idea. You can then also select the different items and it'll let you review the different invoices. So I will go back out of there, but that would be expense claims. If you've mistakenly created an expense claim, if you do actually delete it as well, this will delete the expense claim and move any items back to the cost workspace. So you don't have to worry about it deleting the document. It's just going to delete the claim and move items back into the inbox. Now, when it comes to user privileges and updates, you can now see that we have our users. So this is going to be at the client level. So if we go to users, you can now see we have our users. And if you have to add multiple users, you can now do this, or you can have it toggled off. So if we need to add a few different users, you can now do that en masse, or if we wanted to just change some. So let's say that Nelson, we needed to make any changes. We can come in and now edit some of the details, change the access as well. When adding a new user, once again, if they need access, so let's say that adding a new colleague. If we do need them to log into Dext, this is when we'll be prompted to add in their information. If not, you can actually go through and create the user. So once the user's added, you won't have to worry about them being notified or added. You can now see we've added them in. And when we go to pick up, we can now go to invite, but because we hadn't chose the different user permissions, it wasn't added in there. So the different roles you can choose are going to be basic, administrator, and expense approver. Now, a basic user is only going to be able to see any items in the cost inbox that have them tagged as the document owner. So they won't be able to review any items that they are not identified as. You can also allow them, if they want, to publish any items to the accounting software, or you could limit that. And as well, going back to the expense claims, if you wanted them to be able to produce their own and create their own expense claims, you can have that off. Now, an expense approver, similarly, they will be able to be prohibited from adding any to any publishing rights or expense claims, and you can expand that and give them those options accordingly. Now, one thing to note though, an expense approver, as far as what they'll be able to access, they will then be able to view any items in the cost inbox. So you won't have to worry about them only being able to identify items that they're tagged in. They'll be able to see any items that are sitting in the inbox or the archive for any users, and you can still restrict their ability to publish. So it just gives them a little bit more visibility into the transactions. When you are ready to keep moving, this is when you can then send them an invite for accessing Dext through the mobile app or via an email or a combination of both. So in order to receive messages or any paperwork requests, you will need to give them access to the system, and they will have to download the mobile app, which we'll cover in a little bit more detail next. But this is where you'd be able to add a new colleague and update their permissions. Now, let's say that you have an item that you need a little bit more information about. So this particular cost item here, let's say that I need a little bit more information. So as you can see here, this is where you'd be able to send the messages. Now, in order for a person to receive the message, they're going to need to have downloaded the app, as I had mentioned, and you're going to have to say who you're going to send this to. So for example, if I'm tagged as the user, but I haven't downloaded the app, I won't be able to receive the message. So that's just one thing to note in adding and determining which of your team members or your clients will need to access the app so that you can send messages to them. Another way that you can actually communicate about any items, let's say that these are for items that are actually in the cost workspace. However, if we're working in the bank, for example, and you can see we don't have a match for some of these items. So if I'm looking at this transaction here, it seems as though we have a few items. So from here, I can actually select a few items and then actually request the paperwork to be submitted into Dext. So when I choose where this is going to go, I can choose who the recipient is or where to send it. As well, I can also add a note and say, could you please submit this? Now, when you do send this information, you could also choose to export it as a CSV or a PDF if that's the preferred method, But when you do send these, you will be able to send them through, and they will receive that message or that information within the Dext app. But this would be what you would be sending that initial contact and information from. So when using the mobile app for those users that we've now added and taking them in, so when we look at it in a little bit more detail, you can see that this is probably going to be one of the easiest ways for both you and your clients to submit your receipts, invoices, or PDFs into Dext. So they'll be able to find new uses for that newly repurposed shoebox, or you won't really have to worry about them finding time to drop invoices off, which will help with you being able to access the information a bit sooner and more timely. So your team and your clients can easily just take a picture and then start sending things in quicker, just rather than having to save the receipts for any longer. So when users first log into the mobile app, they're going to see the inbox showing the receipts or any invoices that have already been submitted. As well, they'll be able to quickly see the supplier, date, amount, and just where their current status is as well within the inbox. So this is what you're going to be able to see on an iOS device, and this is what you're going to be able to expect to see on Android. Now, as we mentioned earlier about messages from the web app, when a message comes through, it's probably going to be the easiest way for you to communicate about any items that are either missing or existing items in the inbox that you need a little bit more clarity on. So when you send or receive a message, the user will be able to view them in the app. So if there is a message, you will be able to see here from the transactions, there's going to be a little message icon. So by selecting the item from the inbox and you tap on it, it'll bring up the details tab. You can see the message here up in the upper right hand corner. So this will be able to, once they click on that, they can see there's a message and they'll be able to identify and then respond to any of the messages. So this allows you just to stay on top of any expenses and communicate any information easily and quickly between you and your clients. Similarly, this is what you can expect to see for that workflow on an Android device. So you'll be able to see the icon and then go to your messages and then review any of the messages that come through so that they can respond. This also does stay within the document even after published, so you will have a record of that for any audit purposes as well. Now, when it comes to missing items, as we previously mentioned, if you have the bank space transactions, you can communicate with paperwork requests. So within Dext, if you have your bank feed connected or you've used our bank statement extraction to access those transactions within Dext, you do have the ability to identify any invoices or receipts that have been submitted or that may be missing from the cost workspace. So you'll be able to go within Dext and identify those transactions and send out that request for any of the transactions. So those are going to be called paperwork requests. And on the app, you will be able to see any requests alongside the messages. So as you can see here, if there's an item along the messages, you will be able to identify any paperwork requests that are there within that tab. And then when you select, you'll be able to choose the option and they can either then dismiss or actually submit the paperwork, which will automatically assign the paperwork, which will give you that nice match that we talked about earlier. They can do that either from taking a picture in the moment, or they can actually upload a saved image from their camera roll directly into Dext. If they don't have access to the paperwork though, they could dismiss the request, which I guess is an effective way to identify or receive documents just in a more timely manner so you know where you're at with them. Now again, this is what your paperwork requests are going to look like on an Android device. So they'll be able to review any items and then choose the tab that they need. And then from the Messages tab, choose the paperwork request and either dismiss or submit the information that's required. So what we covered today, we covered how to manage your data and how it's published using payment methods as well as publishing destinations, how to reconcile using bank match and paperwork match, how to automate your workflow using supplier rules as well as auto-publish. We went over how to communicate with your clients through the app about any existing or missing items using messages as well as the paperwork requests. And then finally, we went over how to use expense claims as well as change any client user privileges. So you can actually get started right away with what we've covered today. The best place to begin would be controlling your workflows by setting up some of your top suppliers with some of those supplier rules that we showcased a little bit earlier. As well, maybe automating or turning on some of that auto-publishing for some of those more consistent suppliers that are typically going to the same kind of categories. And then finally, just make sure that your clients have downloaded and can access the Dext mobile app so that they can begin submitting their receipts, as well receive any messages from you and your team about any existing or missing paperwork. One more thing to note, if you or any of your team members that are perhaps newer to Dext or are looking for a refresher on some of the essential, more foundational best practices of using Dext, you can attend one of our basic training sessions, which we help you get set up on Dext. As well, if you have any clients that are new to Dext, you can actually have them, or maybe they're new to your practice, let's say. You can have them, or even new to the recent enhanced layout and design changes. We offer a few additional sessions that you may want to join. These are a great way if you are new to Dext, again, need a refresher, or just to ensure that you're getting the most out of your Dext experience. So we offer our basic training. These sessions are offered Mondays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we also offer our Getting Started with Dext for Clients. Now, these are offered on Wednesdays and Fridays at 2 p.m. The email recording that you'll receive will also have the link, so you'll be able to register any team members or clients for those, so you won't have to look around for that. And that would be the end. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, please type them in the question section at the bottom. If you haven't already, we will answer them live now. If you don't have any questions at this time, you can always just email our support team at support.dext.com or search any of our help articles at help.dext.com. Thank you, everyone.